Welcome to the Miami Heat Floor Crew, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We're the team that breaks down the last week. We'll give you some updates on the team and kind of break down the next week for Miami Heat. We appreciate you guys joining us. If you're not already, make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow us, all that good stuff. Most of you guys probably watching the Dolphins-Bills game. If you're listening to this tomorrow, we'll know the results of that, so we'll see how that comes out. But we did have a solid first week of the year for Miami Heat basketball. Didn't go as well as we wanted to, with losses coming against the Clippers and to the Suns, but we were able to pick up a good victory against the Lakers, with obviously Jaquez continuing to add to his highlight reel with a beautiful post-up fadeaway against LeBron James. But overall, solid basketball. Wasn't the best, so I want to get into that right away, guys. Like I said, 1-2 over the last week, lost to the Clippers, lost to the Suns as well, was able to win against the Lakers. Matt, give me a positive and give me a negative takeaway from the last week of Miami Heat basketball.
Let's start with the bad first. The offense. They're 24th in offense since the calendar turned. They're 24th in effect or in true shooting percentage. They're 28th in effective field goal percentage, and that came against the 10th, 12th, and 16th best defenses in the league. So it's like towards the middle of the pack. Not the best defenses, but certainly not the worst defenses. But it feels like Miami really hasn't been able to get anything going offensively in these games for the most part, and that's been a struggle for them. But I'd say one positive has been Kevin Love. Kevin Love's been outstanding as Miami's backup 5 this year, and he's just been like a revelation. And you can't say enough good things, especially with how that situation has been behind Bam Adebayo the last several years, and even at points this year with Thomas Bryant and Orlando Robinson. So I'm just going to shout out Kevin Love.
Absolutely, man. You know, when you have Dwayne Dedmon and I can't even remember who was before that, you know, as your backup 5, and essentially minutes are just becoming a whole, and there's no positive from the backup 5. You know, it's not something you want to see. But Kevin Love, like you said, he's not someone I expected to have, you know, a lot of minutes early in the season. But man, he's made some really good positive contributions. He's had multiple double-digit rebounding games. He's filled that role really well. He's able to create from the other end of the court with his passing as well. So we'll get a little more into that as with that. Now, Mateo, I want you to break down to you as well this last week for you. Give me a positive, give me a negative. What do you like and what you didn't like?
Well, a positive, something encouraging for the future is that the best finisher this week of the Heat's top 4 players, that being Adebayo, Hero, Jaquez, and Robinson, it was the rookie Jaime Jaquez Jr. Logging 53% of his field goals. Adebayo didn't score too well for a big man at 44%. Hero and Robinson were at 30 and 31%. That's not very good. What you saw that was problematic was obviously, the transition offense, which is very strange considering the president of this team was the coach of the Showtime Lakers, the greatest fast break and transition offense of all time, possibly. The team couldn't generate too much rim pressure. On top of that, on the defensive end, the perimeter defense was lacking, particularly in the corners. When the other teams attack through pick and roll, usually, you should trust Bam Adebayo in the drop or whoever else is there to switch on to the opponent instead of, helping off the strong or weak side corner. As Phil Jackson says, the pass is always faster than the bounce, and, exposing the corners has burned the Miami Heat, not just this week, but the entire season. I think back in the game against the Phoenix Suns, Grayson Allen, who is a nice role player in the league, nothing special, was looking like a Hall of Famer in the first half, dropping over 20 points very efficiently on the Miami Heat. It was very discouraging. And, in that game, Adebayo was, I think the best player. And what was also very disheartening is that in the second half, the rest of the team kind of left him kind of hang a little bit on the offensive end as the Phoenix Suns were kind of just destroying the Miami Heat. But this week it was I can't really point to too many good things because they went 1 out of 3 and blew the back end of their West Coast road trip. And a lot of people are going to point to, yeah, Jimmy Butler was out, but truthfully, this team could do a whole lot better still without him.
Absolutely. And, there's a couple things, like you said, one of the things, and let's actually get into this. I think that was a great point you brought up with the fast break, because I think that's something that this team has not just struggled at this year, but it's been something over the last couple of years, right? Too many pull-up threes, not enough rim pressure, especially on a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1. You shouldn't be settling for a 3. No matter how wide open it is, you always want to be attacking the rim, drawing fouls, getting to the free throw line, and even slowing the game down, because if you have a 3-on-1 fast break and you miss a 3-point shot, what's on the other end of the court? It's a 4-on, right? So now if they get that rebound, they're the one with the advantage. And if we're not converting those shots, then at the end of the day, it doesn't help out our team. So, Matt, I'll let you get to it. What do you feel is the main reason for our struggles when it comes to rim pressure and fast break opportunities?
Well, even like in transition, we talk about even like the Tyler Hero pull-up threes or them just shooting threes in general. That's some of the best looks they're actually getting in transition. When it comes to like, they're indecisive with what they want in transition. Like it'll be a 3-on-1 and you'll see they overpass, or they're not even looking at the rim. And then all of a sudden you look at, and it's a 5-on-5. Like they're incredibly indecisive, and the spacing isn't great, but even when the spacing's not great, even when the spacing is great, they just can't seemingly make decisions. But then with like the rim pressure, Miami has lacked like true rim pressure outside of Jimmy Butler for most of the Jimmy Butler era, and that's been a plaguing problem with them. They really haven't had a sustainable answer with that, and that's a little bit of a problem. So yeah,
absolutely, man. So yeah, go ahead, Mateo.
My as far as the transition, I was mentioning this on playback, and one thing that could be it is that it's not practiced enough in, traditionally Riley teams and Spoelstra teams focus more on the defensive side of the court when they're running things behind the scenes, and particularly like Riley's old teams, like the Showtime Lakers. One thing that Magic Johnson would do, I also mentioned this on the broadcast, to make sure the guys ran their lanes correctly on the break, is he would throw the ball at them at full speed and it would hit him in the head. And a lot of times his teammates would look at him like, yo, what the heck? And he'd be like, yo, please be prepared because the next one is coming a little harder. And as far as the rim pressure, truthfully, not enough guys on this team have that explosive first step. It's really Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Jaime Jaquez Jr., I'm tempted to say he has it, but really what sells me about him is that he has that footwork to get guys going left when he is going right. But really, those are the biggest areas, or what I identify as problems in these two areas.
Absolutely, guys. And I think those are great points with that. I think both you said the personnel, it's really hard when it's Caleb Martin, it's Jimmy Butler, and sometimes Bam Adebayo when he's, not taking a jump. And I don't mind him taking the jump shots. I don't want anybody to think I'm having a problem. I love him taking the jump shots. I think his shot selection is great. An aggressive Bam Adebayo is going to be a good and a Bam Adebayo for us, right? So let's get into, this team and potentially the timeline of what we have going on here, right? Because Van Lee gave us hearing some murmurs of Jimmy moving on from Jimmy before breaking up the young core. Obviously not talking about moving Jimmy, not anything like that. And we're not saying that Jimmy is declining or that he's not the same player he was. When it comes playoff time, Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler, and we'll know when he's over the hill when it comes to being him in the playoffs, right? So as of right now, Jimmy Butler is still top 5 playoff performer when it comes down to it. But in the regular season, Mateo, I'll let you start with this one. Do you think we're going to start, or do you think in the regular season that we shouldn't rely on Jimmy Butler and that we're starting to see a little bit of a decline with what he gives in the regular season? Or do you think this is more something that's strategic and kind of the way he's planning himself out for the playoffs?
Gentlemen, I'm not sure if it's strategic, but there has without a doubt been a change in the way he is attacking the defenses, because in terms of restricted area shot diet, or attempts in the restricted area, rather, he's attempting 7% less there and 5% fewer in the paint. And part of what makes the other players go is, his ability to be so efficient there. And I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. So just about, do you think Jimmy? Yeah.
If I'm sorry, go repeat the question one more time. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So as far as like, do you think that Jimmy is starting to get over the hill when it comes to regular season?
Yes. Well, with that that rim pressure, he's not generating as much. It makes everybody's job around him so much harder, because the other defenders from the other team aren't going to cheat off the other Heat players as often to help on Jimmy inside of the lane. So right now he is converting 46% of his baskets this season, and usually you have depended on Jimmy to score 50% or more. And usually historically when guys get to this age, 34 and going on 35, usually the team starts looking to the next best option on the team to replace them, at least with Pat's team, the Los Angeles Lakers back in the day when Kareem hit this age, they were quietly, pushing, Magic Johnson as the focal point of the team. And really, it looks like the Heat are kind of doing that with Bam Adebayo, but I'm not sure if he's ready to take that next step. Forgive me for drawing a momentary brain fart at the start of your question. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, but you actually transitioned it perfectly. Matt, before we transition to if we think Bam Adebayo is ready for that step, anything to add as far as potential, the current standing of Jimmy Butler and what we should expect from him?
I don't know if we should be concerned about Jimmy yet. I would be more concerned about Jimmy once it hits March, the end of March/April, when it's considered his ramp up period. And like if he's still either underperforming, he isn't as efficient, he's not attacking the rim the same level, he's not creating for the offense to the same level, then I think it's fair to be a little bit concerned. I wouldn't be concerned just yet. But there are concerning parts of this in terms of, like, as Mateo mentioned, him getting to the rim, his efficiency at the rim, his efficiency just in general. He's, I think, 8% percentage points fewer in terms of his field goal percentage this year than it was last year. And which was, by the way, one of his best seasons of his career in terms of like just his efficiency. But there are some like underlying concerns. The steals are down. Like him defensively, it feels like he hasn't been as engaged defensively. There's a little bit more variance to that, but it's still something that just is a little eye-popping when you look at like what Jimmy Butler's done so far this season, albeit a pretty small sample. And so there are some concerning parts. I wouldn't be super, super concerned yet, but if you were to say like that you were a little bit concerned about X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to argue with you on that.
Absolutely. And to build on that, right? If Jimmy Butler, whether it's this season or over the next couple seasons, starts, regressing a little bit. And, like one of our comments, Van Lee says, the knee, the ankle, the toe, with Josh Hart, I think that was something that really affected him playing through that injury for the series. It's something that's not easy at all to play through an injury. And that could have some residual damage when it comes to that side of things. Do you think Bam Adebayo is ready to be the next guy that steps up when Jim, past Jimmy, or do you think maybe it's someone else? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a little bit interesting to me. I think I think Bam would be, it would be easier to say yes if you had a guy who could distribute the ball to him or set him up at a higher level. He's still averaging 22 and 10 on 57% true shooting. Like his numbers, he's improved every year of his career, and he's improved again this year. But in terms of like a 1A, I'd still say like pump the brakes a little bit. But you could honestly talk me into either yes and no. It's just I would rather have someone who could set him up better and put him in better spots. Like obviously there's stuff to improve with Bam's game, whether it's like him developing a drop step or him developing a hook shot, so on and so forth. But he's Bam Adebayo. He's improved every single year of his career. And at some point, he probably will be the 1A in this offense. If it's not Tyler Hero, or if it's not even Jaime Jaquez, like there could be he could be the guy in the next 2-3 years at least. But as of right now, I would still say pump the brakes just a little bit, but that's just my take. I mean, again, I could be talking to either answer here, if I'm being honest.
Definitely. I'll let you jump in 1 second, Mateo. But to your point, it's hard for me to see Bam as a 1A on a championship team. To be honest with you, it's really hard. I mean, even guys like someone as talented as Anthony Davis, he wasn't able to be a 1A on a championship team, even with the numbers he was doing when he was taking the same type of shots that we want Bam Adebayo to take, right? It was really hard for him without another player to be dominant in the playoffs, right? So to your point, I think, with today's basketball, it's not so much just having one player, but who are the correct players to surround that guy with, right? Who are the other star players that's going to be in that situation, right? And in the era of essentially the big three or the mighty combos that we have, right? You have teams with, like, of course, LeBron and AD. You have your Giannis and your Dames, right? You have your 1-2 punch combos. So we need to find who that next fit next to Bam Adebayo is going to be, even if he's not the 1A. You know what I mean? Which is totally okay for his game not to be meant to be for a 1A player. He might be that guy that's next to in a 1B, right? The Dwayne Wade to the LeBron when it comes to later. Like, you know what I mean? So it's okay not to be the 1A guy. Mateo, go ahead.
You know, um, sorry about if my screen turned black for a second. I momentarily pressed something and I didn't know what was on. Technical difficulties on my end. But as far as sticking with Bam being the 1A or the 1B, one thing that I'm very impressed about is that he's having a career high in free throw attempts at 7.7 per game, which is less than half an attempt behind Jimmy Butler. But what's very notable about this gentleman is that Bam's spots where he's taking the majority of his attempts are from 3 to 10 feet and from 10 to 16 feet, more so than at close range in the restricted area at 0 to 3 feet. And usually at the rim is when you're going to get fouled most of the time. It's just what you're seeing here is opposing defenses are playing him very tight because of his jump shot, biting on his fakes. And, he is someone who obviously has studied a lot of Dwayne Wade and, getting players in the air and absorbing contact and sticking with, can he be that focal or be that number one guy on or the offense, the championship team? I don't want to, cap him yet. It's just, he's only 26 years old, and it's just he's improved incrementally every season, and this one he has shown me a lot. It's just I think he still has a little bit more to gain, especially in terms of post moves, and that could be a real difference maker for this team if it's something that he relies on more than just the face up. When he notices someone who is around the same size, but not of the same strength, he just back them down completely instead of just trying to face up and do the blow by. Adebayo still has a long way to go, and truthfully, I think why we haven't seen as much takeover ability on offense is because, remember, he is probably the most important defender, and he is expending so much energy guarding 5 positions, switching everywhere that really liquidates your legs on the other side. So I'm really not sure he could be the 1A, but in terms of at least in the short term right now, probably not. And that's what's a little concerning because you see Jimmy playing a little differently. You got other teams like the Bucks who are obviously better with Dame. The Boston Celtics are better with KP and Drew Holiday. The Knicks just made the move for OG and haven't lost. And that's right, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, despite losing Garland and Mobley for the foreseeable future, they have still been able to tread water. So you kind of do still need Jimmy to be himself, because what they did last year, going on that historic playoff run as the 8th seed, the second ever to go to the finals and the first ever as the play-in squad, is some real historic stuff. And I think that's partially why you're also seeing Spoelstra mentioning seeding more often this early in the season, because to do what they did in the postseason last year takes such not of a physical burden, but a mental burden as well.
Definitely, man. Definitely. So we're coming up here on 20 minutes. We got some Dolphins Bills action coming up. So we're going to close out here with one last thing. We got to make some predictions for this next week. And Van Leah talking about the Tyler usage and the drop of some other numbers. Stay tuned for next week, because if we see more numbers and some more correlation with that, we'll definitely talk about the drop of numbers for Jaime, the drop of numbers for Duncan as well. So definitely stay tuned for next week. We'll break that down if we continue to see that can happen. But in the next week, we have 4 games. We got the Rockets, we got the Thunder, we got the Magics, and we have the Hornets. So Matt, I'll let you start it off. Give us your prediction on how we do over those 4 games.
I'll say 2-2. I think Miami loses to Oklahoma City and to Orlando. Although, it's tough. Orlando, Houston slipped a little bit lately, but I still think Miami gets them first game back from a long road trip. Oklahoma City's been a machine this year. They're a team that really no one wants to see right now, if I'm being truthfully honest with you, with how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's playing, how Jalen Williams has played, so on and so forth. That team has just been a force. Chet Holmgren, probably rookie of the year. I at this point of the season. Orlando has been tough for Miami. I mean, Miami did beat them earlier in the season, but it just feels like that they have the size, they have the length to make that a little bit of a difficult matchup. And then the last one was the Hornets, you said?
Yes.
I think Miami beats the Hornets. I mean, it's the
Nice.
Hornets.
Yeah, and to your point with the Magic game, we had some near, crazy good shooting.
Yeah.
I think they had 6 made threes in a row in like the last 5 minutes of the first half in that game, and Highsmith had like 4 of them, which was insane to see. But it was some crazy good shooting that blew the game out. But like you said, Orlando always gives some good competitive basketball for that. Before I give my prediction, Mateo, give us a quick prediction for those 4 games. How do you think they end up going?
I'm also going to go with 2-2. The Thunder and the Magic game are the real tough ones. I'm going to automatically say the Thunder are an automatic loss. Chet Holmgren doesn't really look like a rookie. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can create separation at will and just gets into the lane like it's nobody's business. The third best player on that team, Jalen Williams, I really like him because he's got an explosive first step and he's got a bulkier build, like a throwback player like ML Carr. But the Orlando Magic, Franz Wagner is expected to miss some time with an ankle injury, but that hasn't stopped Paolo Banchero in the last game against the Denver Nuggets from eating. So I still think he's going to put more of a burden on his shoulders and be more of a scoring threat and probably lead them to a win. The Hornets and speaking of the Hornets, I do not respect that team very much, and I'm not saying that to be a jerk. It's just in terms of the matchup for Bam Adebayo, if Nick Richards is going to be the guy defending him, I think he is just going to dominate that one. And the first one, which would be the Rockets, this one could be a tougher game than expected. Alperen Sengun has been one of the best stories of the NBA season so far. One of the most improved players. He's kind of like a baby Nikola Jokic. That's what everybody says because he can do a little bit of everything. And his screening is just so deadly because as soon as he just lays that contact, separation is created for almost an extra second to get down into the lane or for a jump shot. But I still have the Heat winning that game because he is not a very good defender. I still think if you can rely on Bam Adebayo to take 18 shots in that game, he's going to go at Alperen Sengun in the mid-range and at close range. So give me 2-2 as well.
Beautiful. I think we're gonna go 3-1. I think OKC is gonna take us down. Like you said, that point of attack defense is really tough, especially with somebody like that guy. So I mean, there's not really much players in the league that can guard him, anyways. With his size, handling, and his shooting ability, and that floater is so nice too. Like he's got so many nice things to this game. I love Shai, man. He's another one of those guys that you just love to have in a Heat jersey one day. But I think they're the team that's gonna beat us with the Rockets. And honestly, the other teams with the Magic and the Rockets, Coach Spo really knows how to coach well against young teams and kind of figure out their strength and shut them out. So I do think we go 3-1 on the stretch. I think after a tough start to the new year, we're going to get things rolling. I think Miami Heat basketball is going to just get things a little bit better, probably a little more efficient with with obviously Tyler and everybody in the lineup. Hopefully we can get Jimmy back in an efficient manner to have our full team back at some point. I don't know when. We don't know when. Miami Heat don't play with their full guys ever, but appreciate you guys, as always, as joining us. We got Mateo. We had Matt. As always, thank you guys for joining in the comments as well. Mac, Thomas, Van Lee, everybody who joined us. Appreciate y'all. If you're not already, like I said, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, the podcast feed, YouTube. Follow the boys over here as well. Make sure you follow those guys. They got great content. If you want to watch some black and white footage, you can follow Mateo and watch him break down some 1930s basketball. And then Matt's always got some great content as well. But appreciate you guys. Have a good one, and let's go Heat.